Hi guys, if it's Friday, it's Down and Dirty Woodscraft. Stay with me. Okay guys, today we're going to talk about something kind of complicated. But it's one of those things that you have to understand, and it'll make your life a whole lot easier once you're aware of it. Okay? Now what we're going to talk about is skillets and cookware. And we're going to talk about how the material can affect how well it does in the field. And also how the atmospheric conditions and your heat source can make a big difference. So, let's start with the idea that I'm going to take a hunk of Spam, and I'm on about a finger thickness. I'm going to slice it off. We're going to pretend here, guys, but a piece that big, okay? If I took that hunk of meat and I put it onto this fork and I held it into the raw flame of a campfire, will it cook it or will it burn it? Both. It starts out cooking it, but if it's in the raw flame, it will very quickly go to burning it as well. So the transition between go and uh-oh is really close together, okay? In that raw flame, because of the heat of that flame, it's over 1,000 degrees. So what's the burning point of that meat? Well below 1,000 degrees. So it will heat it, saturate it, and the inside can be raw and the outside burn black because the heat is so high on the surface. It's burning before it can have a chance to really cook. See? So when we're talking about aluminum transfers heat very, very rapidly. The molecules of aluminum are so open that I want you to have a mental picture of this. Anytime you're thinking about aluminum, think of that grate right there. Big open holes, so the heat goes through it very, very fast. Now if I put this grate in that raw flame and laid that hunk of meat on it, would it cook it or burn it? Yes, again, because the heat goes right through it, it burns it very rapidly. So this aluminum put into that kind of heat will heat up very, very rapidly, and the amount of heat that's being generated, let's say the 1,000 degrees, hardly any stays in the pan. It goes straight through, so to speak. So very rapidly, the temperature of the inside where the meat is reaches that 900 to 1,000 degree temp in a hurry, and so it goes into that burning cycle. Steel, and this is the same thing, but it's a steel set, is more dense. So it acts more like a shield. I want you to think of it like an old military shield sitting there. And that heat hits it at 1,000 degrees. And then it's got to heat this thing up. That heat has got to hit and spread out as those all tight chambered molecules spread the heat out. And so the surface inside goes from whatever the room temperature and it starts going up. But it goes up a lot slower than that aluminum does. Okay? So this is going to spread out that time between go and uh-oh, cooking longer before it burns. So if I put that piece of meat in there, it's going to initially be cool, then it's going to warm up, and it's going to stretch out the cooking before it reaches the burn point, right? It will reach it, but it's slower to get there because the material is slowing down that transfer. Now this Pathfinder has a thick bottom, even denser. So even though this is stainless steel, it's got a very thick bottom. And when that heat hits it, it's got to spread out even slower. So it's going to spread out that go to uh-oh even further out. So they say it cooks better, okay? It's more forgiving, that I have a greater chance to cook with it before it starts burning it in this condition. Okay? Now what if my atmosphere at the same time? What if it is 32 degrees out here? It's that cold. Okay? I put my aluminum in that heat and it heats up very fast. Okay? The second I pull it off the heat, it cools down just as fast. Just like, so what if I'm trying to hold heat? It's a cold day, I cook my food and I lay it into my stainless steel plate, my aluminum plate right here. And my aluminum plate, you know, even though it was just hot just a minute ago, how fast would it and just suck all the heat out of that meat? If you'll notice, there's a thing that they were popular for quite a while on TV. It was a thin aluminum plate with a couple of legs on it that you get to defrost things. You could take a frozen steak or whatever and lay it on it in like 20-25 minutes. It was completely thawed out because that aluminum would transfer that cold out to room temperature so fast it would suck the cold out of it, and therefore it would cool. So if I'm going to be eating out here and I put my hot food into an aluminum plate and it's a cold environment, it's going to suck the heat out and my food will get cold a whole lot faster than that steel or that other. So my atmosphere can affect how well my cooking set works. Okay? What if, now here we've established, I've got a piece of meat, I put it in the flame, it's going to burn rather quickly. It won't have a chance to cook, it's got to burn before it really gets a chance. If I put it in aluminum, it's almost the same. If I put it into steel, it will cook a lot longer before it burns, but it will. If I put it in that thick pan, it goes even longer before. And now let's jump up to the top end, cast iron. Cast iron is so thick and dense and heavy that that heat has to permeate all the way through it. Remember, like I talked about that pot of water, that the water temperature has to reach 212 degrees in the entire water before it's fully boiling and steam's coming out of it. It can boil a little on the bottom and send up a little bubble or two, but until that top's at a good hard rolling boil, the entire pot is not at 212 degrees. Well, that big heavy piece of cast iron, it takes a while to come up to temp. So when I put it in those raw flames, it's going to come up much slower. Where the curve for the aluminum is like that, the curve for that cast iron is like that. Stainless will be here and that steel one will be there. So now I'm lengthening, okay, the time between the go, we're hot enough to start cooking, and the uh-oh, it starts burning. I'm spreading it out. So thick, heavy cookware, a Dutch oven for example, is very forgiving in that. So I don't want to have to tote the heavy weight of a Dutch oven, or certainly the heavy weight of a big old heavy cast iron skillet. I want to tote something else. Well, I can still utilize this. I just have to be aware of what each one wants to do. Okay? I cook in this. I can cook over high heat, and then I can let it, once it's hot and I'm cooking, I can ease it off to the edge a little bit because it's going to hold heat a little bit better and keep it in that cooking range. And then if it starts to drop down where it's not cooking like I want, I can slide it back into the heat easily, see, and slowly bring it up, back up, so it's a slow up and down. For just the plain steel skillet, I prefer to run a little less heat. Don't put it in the raw flames, put it on real good coals. And I want to hold my skillet up in the flame. If there's flames and I got coals, I'll hold my bare skillet up in the flames a minute and warm it up. So when I put my cold food in it, it doesn't suck all the heat back out, see? And then I put it over coals or just a little bit of flame, not much, and cook on it. And then this cooks very well, okay? Aluminum. I do not want to cook on raw flame with aluminum. I want coals for this, a more consistent, even heat. So I'll have my fire here and I'll rake coals out and I'll use this because this transfers the heat very, very fast, right? Well, what's the temperature I need? I only need 400 or 500 degrees to cook with, so I don't need the 1,000+ degree flames and I do it. If I'm boiling water, I want that. But if I'm trying to cook that piece of Spam in here, I want coals, see? Sit it up there and start, you heat it up, you know, hold it in the flame for just a second, bring it over here, put the meat in it over a bed of coals and start cooking. If it starts to burn, lift it up it'll cool quickly. Just pull it off the thing, give it about 10 seconds, come back over the coals, and the temperature just drops straight down very rapidly. Now for holding heat, it's winter, it's cold, and I cook something. I don't want to use the aluminum set in the winter because it doesn't hold heat. So once I cook my food and I put it in my plate and I pull it over here, it's going to suck the heat out and it's going to make cold food in a hurry. I'm cold, I'm trying to generate warmth by eating a hot meal. Putting into something, might as well put it into an ice bath. It's going to suck the heat out of it. That's where the steel would be better. It would hold heat better in the cold conditions and give me a chance to eat it without it turning cold in such a hurry. Even better would be the thick bottom of the Pathfinder skillet. Be able to pull it out and just eat it straight out of the skillet like a plate, because that thick bottom would hold the heat and therefore keep it in a better position for me. So, to recap, if it's aluminum, it heats up and it cools very, very rapidly. So I want to stay away from flame. I want coals. Typically cooler coals. Now one of the ways I used to teach people to cook with the old Boy Scout mess kit is I would get my fire going, I'd get me a good bed of coals, and I'd rake me a bed of coals down, and I'd put my hand about 4 or 6 inches above the coals and count. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. If I get to about 5,000 and my hand's getting hot where I got to move it, that's about right. I can put my aluminum skillet over that and cook and not burn stuff. Okay? On the other hand, if I'm doing the same thing and I'm wanting to cook slow with that steel skillet, I want more coals and hotter. I want to put my hand over it and go 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. About 3,000, I got to move my hand. That's hot enough. See, that's probably about 400 or 500 degrees. About 5,000 count, 5 to 6,000 count is somewhere around 350 degrees, roughly. You know, we're talking about roughly what the environment is we're in. Remember, if it's 25 degrees out here, yeah, you're gonna have to build it up a little bit more, because now you're fighting the environment, not just the pot. See. Aluminum is a whole lot better to carry for lightweight. And if the only thing I'm doing is making boiling bag meals, aluminum's perfectly fine. At temperature shoots straight up, I put the water into the pot, I put it directly over the flames, and it's boiling like Jiminy Crickets. Here we go. I'm just going to pour it out, let the pot dry. It'll be cool by the time I'm done eating, ready to put back in the bag, put back in my pack, and I'm gone. Steel's going to take a couple of minutes to cool down, especially in the summer. That heavier Pathfinder is going to take a few minutes to cool down. So is big old cast iron. Cast iron may take 20, 25 minutes to cool down, and maybe 30 minutes before it's cool enough I could actually put it up against my pack or something like that. So those are factors I need to be aware of. So, aluminum, think great. The heat goes right through it. So you've got to be much more on top of your heat. How much heat I'm using. Steel is more forgiving, but it's heavier. Heavy bottom is even more forgiving, but it also will require more heat to get up to frying level. And cast iron is by far the most forgiving. It's the heaviest, and once it's hot, it stays hot, which is a big advantage if like I'm frying chicken. And I've got 2 inches of oil in that pan and it's frying, and I'm taking cold chicken and putting it in that oil. It doesn't suck the heat out as fast because the pan itself is acting like a hot brick and holding that heat. So my temperature doesn't dip as bad. Whereas an aluminum skillet, I go to put another piece of cold chicken that's right out of the fridge and I'm about to put in a fry, and the temperature of the oil drops and my boiling quits and it stops frying, and it sits there and absorbs heat until the heat comes back. It absorbs oil until the heat comes back up so it can start cooking again. These are the things that you just have to decide what type of material you're going to use and play to its strengths and avoid its weaknesses. Hope this gives you some ideas, guys. Please hit that like, share, and subscribe before you go. And if you've got any questions, put them down in the comments. I'll do my best to answer. Till next time, guys, I'm Blackie, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.